a huge privilege for me to welcome each and every one of you to yet another edition of the Digital Dialogue. Today, we will release a white paper on the state of IPv6 in India and the way forward. Today's dialogue is presented to you by us at Broadband India Forum, and the event partner is Bharat Exhibition. It is my honor to welcome the eminent experts who have joined us today for this session on this very interesting topic, IPv6. The moderator for today's session will be Mr. Arun Mukherjee, the Senior Director for Operations at the Broadband India Forum. However, the panel discussion will be moderated by Mr. Anupam Agarwal, who's Chair of the India Internet Foundation. Some housekeeping announcements before we start this session. All speakers are requested to please keep their mics on mute if they are not speaking. During the question and answer session, the moderator will determine the opportunity to invite you to speak should you have raised your hand to indicate so. Keeping your camera on is a matter of personal choice and convenience, except when speaking. It's always nice to see the face behind the voice. However, in the event of a loss of bandwidth, my personal experience has been that switching off the camera seems to help. This event is being recorded and streamed live on YouTube. The link will be shared with all participants to revisit and share with your colleagues and friends if you so wish. Please use the chat window for any questions. To enable chat, you can find the chat button on the bottom of your screen. Last but not least, let us be time sensitive to keep within the allotted time slots to create a better experience for everyone who's a part of this session. With that, let me invite Dr. Satya N. Gupta, Chairman, Bharat IPv6 Forum and Treasurer, Broadband India Forum, for his introductory remarks. But I'll hand over right now. Before I hand over, my apologies to him, Dr. Satya Gupta is an international expert in NGN technologies, regulation, interconnection, and broadband with over 40 years of experience. He is popularly known as the NGN Group. Author of Long Tail, Walking the Extra Mile on Rural Broadband Business, he is the first Indian recipient of the IPv6 Hall of Fame 2019, and also the chairman of the India IPv6 Council. He had earlier served in the Ministries of Communications and Railways and the TRAI. SNG, over to you.
Oh, thank you, Rajat, for such a nice introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. And it's indeed a great pleasure and honor to be invited for this important dialogue or workshop on a subject which is very close to my mind, the IPv6, which we popularly call the new internet. I'm really thankful to TV Saab for this, and I'm really honored to have Mr. UK Srivastav, the Director General of NTI-PRIT, our very old colleague actually, and he had been working in TRA also and TC also, which are actually the main cornerstone of IPv6 revolution in India, which started way back in 2000. So first, on behalf of my forum, the Bharat IPv6 Forum, take towards Atmanirbhar Connected Bharat. Actually, that is the theme of our forum. Basically, it's a new name for the India IPv6 Council. The main objective, and that is single liner for this forum, is to have the capability, and the technicalities or expertise to dare to design, develop, and create and operate our own root server in the country. the root server for IPv6 actually. It is also called IPv6 only root server. So that is our one-liner objective of the forum. Most of you are associated with that in this way or that way, but a lot of work. It's just a beginning actually. As far as IPv6 is concerned, and especially the state of IPv6 and way forward, so I will not like to steal the thrill from Madam Amrita, who has done such a hard work on the report, though I've yet to go through the report, of course, but of course, I'm expecting a lot of things in that. As far as IPv6 is concerned, and especially for the audience, everyone know actually 20 years back, it was predicted that V4 addresses, which were only 32-bit, will get depleted or exhausted soon. So we have to go to the version 6, which is 128-bit and which have almost infinite number of addresses. That was the single point agenda of the V6 debates, which started 20 years back. And the good thing about that was the father of the V4 internet, actually, our Sheriff, he was also the promoter of V6. That is something unique, that your own invention you want to, let us say, make obsolete or disrupt, something like that. A very unique thing with Mr. Win, Dr. Win Sheriff, actually, he's still very active on that. But that was the only thing that time. But after that, V6 has brought a lot of things, and those are the innovation. It is not about the address space, actually. It is helping us in the mobility. It is helping us in the security, which is always lacking. Whenever we talk of IP as a protocol, IP as a technology, or cyber in general, the two things are almost granted. Even one is that it can never be secure. You can never be 100% secure. The second thing, which is also a misnomer, that it will always remain a global. As a country, you cannot do much about your part of the network. But luckily, IPv6 have come with so many facilities, so many attributes as the things are going, that you can make it very secure. If not all the global internet, at least your part of the internet. Your part means our sovereign part, like the network of our own country. I like to quote also from our Honorable Minister of State, Rajiv Chandrasekharji. He has been very vocal on the next generation of internet, and he wants the Indian part of the internet at least should be open, it should be secured, it should be trusted, and it should be accountable. These four things he have been using whenever I happen to listen to him when he talk on this subject. And that shows that as a sovereign right, we have a right to protect our cyberspace also. Even if it is global, even if it is a part of global, our own cyberspace, we have a right. And that is what the Honorable Minister wishes. And there is a talk, even in ITU, there is a talk about creating a trusted critical digital infrastructure. We are talking of information highway, digital infrastructure, and it is always critical. Many countries, and especially in India, even Prime Minister calls it a information highway, which is very, very critical. But nobody ever talked that to make it trusted also, unless we got our minister like Rajiv Chandrasekharji, actually, whom we know. He is a deep tech guy. Actually, some of you may not be knowing. He started his career with Intel. And as you know, Intel is inside everything we do on computer, IT, or for that matter in it. So he has come from that background, and he knows how it can be done. And one example is on this VPN, you know, the debate which is going on. And when the work from home started in India, and when they told, okay, now you can have, earlier the condition was you should have a service provided VPN, even at home, which was almost impossible, because for each VPN, you need a separate address. And it costs actually. In the office, I can have a VPN. But if I'm told to have a VPN in my home, it's very difficult. And then that condition was removed during work from home days. And we were allowed, we as a user or a customer, were allowed to create on our own VPN. But it is easier said than done. If you have to create your own VPN, you need a dedicated IP address. With V4, you cannot get that actually. And that is what V6 came to help actually. And it will come to help also now. Now, if some company, VPN company are threatening to go out of the country, we still can manage if we make best use of the IPv6 address. Nixie, our other friend, CEO Anil Jainji, who works with Mr. Rajiv Chandrasekhar, and they have come out with a policy that you can get your IPv6 address free of cost if you want to make use of that. Of course, you have to know how to make use of that. That is a different thing. That is a skilling part is required. But you see, that is what IPv6 can do. Address space is just one thing. It can help in everything actually. There is a concept called ESP here, the encapsulated security payload actually. The address space is so vast. Some part of the address space you can use to enhance your security. Authentication header, a part of the header can be helped to do authentication. A part of the header can be able to do tracing actually. You know, Professor Ramakuti of IIT Madras actually, he's on record that I can help you to trace even the WhatsApp message, origin of the WhatsApp message. And nobody in the world is daring to say so. This professor actually, and he has been now promoted as the director. And he also had in mind these IPv6 address to each user. If each user have a IPv6 address, you can trace him actually, because that is the dedicated address. And V6 permits us to do that. So many applications, not only just address space are there. We'll be discussing a lot of them. But one thing, because TV Saab is also there, like in Broadband India Forum, we have been doing 2 studies, which we did in last 3 years. One was the economic value of OTT, the OTT value added services. What is the economic value? Then we did the economic value of unlicensed spectrum, which became the landmark actually data for the researcher, for the policymaker. So maybe at the Broadband India Forum, we may have to calculate the economic value of this new internet, the migration from V4 to V6. What is the economic value actually? Not only the cost part of it, but what value it adds actually. And that can be a work for us in Broadband India Forum. So many other things are there which we'll be discussing during the panel also, especially our chief guest UK Saab is there, and he also have been involved in this, especially the places where he worked, and his last place TC, and his successor, Madam Deepa Tyagi, is on the record that country need the capacity and capability to develop a root server, not only just for getting more address or to get a local control, but just to have the capacity to play with and every part of the internet. And she's on record on that actually. And that is what our aim is there in the, actually on the, our forum also. But so many other things actually, which will be coming also. So with that, I will like to just thank again for all of you, and looking forward to the debate and discussion led by our UK Saab and also B Ganesh Saab actually. And I will be failing in my duty if I don't mention the B Ganesh role or his company, Reliance Jio. Actually in the V6, we are on the top of the world. Actually, literally we are on the top of it. Now every day when we listen to the Prime Minister or a minister, every field, the Prime Minister wants we should be on the top of the world. We should be the world leader on everything we do. We should be a superpower. V6, actually, we are already the superpower in that sense. We are the biggest user of V6, and courtesy our Reliance Jio for that. And but we cannot, let us say, rest or on the laurels we have, because our neighbors are fast catching up. So if we don't accelerate, the digital transformation, if we don't have our own root server also, because we are in the age of distributed control, or what we call decentralized control. The decentralized control means that whatever is the control part, it should spread over. geographical spread should be there, or it should be at least where the users are. V6 users, the 50% of the V6 users are in India actually. So if that is the case, it is logical for us to have our own root server. Even if we have to pay for it, it is easier said than done to get a root server. But we should be thinking of that. We should be going there. So with that, I will really like to stop here, Rajat, and thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta, for setting the context for this evening's session on IPv6. A pillar of Broadband India Forum, and also as chairman of Bharat IPv6 Forum, there could not have been a better person to do so. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
It is my privilege to now invite our chief guest, Shri UK Srivastav, Director General, NTI PRIT, Department of Telecommunications, Ministry of Communications, to release the white paper titled State of IPv6 in India and Way Forward. A video will be played to virtually release the white paper now. Many thanks to our chief guest, Shri UK Srivastav, Director General, National Telecommunications Institute for Policy Research, Innovation and Training under the Department of Telecommunications, for releasing the Broadband India Forum white paper on State of IPv6 in India and the Way Forward. The white paper has been authored by Ms. Amrita Chaudhary, Director CCAOI, and also a UN IGF MAG member, Mr. Anupam Agarwal, Chair, India Internet Foundation, and Mr. Satish Babu, President, INAP Infotech. They were supported by Mr. Abhijit Panikar, Deputy Director with BIF for Research and Analysis. The white paper includes the learnings derived from the digital dialogue session on IPv6 organized in October 2021. Highlights of the white paper will be presented by Ms. Amrita Chaudhary after the release of the white paper. Sir, thank you for releasing the white paper. Now to the next steps of, it is my pleasure to introduce Ms. Amrita Chaudhary, Director CCAOI, for giving a short summary of the paper. She is the Director CCAOI and is an active member and contributor at national, regional and global internet governance platforms. Along with being the Director of CCAOI, she additionally serves as a UN IGF MAG member, Vice Chair for the Asia Pacific Regional IGF, Vice Chair APROLO at ICANN, and President of Internet Society India. Besides this, she is one of the founding members of INSIG, curates for Diplo Foundation, and advises and guides Youth IGF India on Internet guidance. Amrita ji, over to you, please.
Thank you, Arun, and welcome everyone to this session. Mr. Gupta has spoken a lot about, the need for IPv6 and why it should be there. So I'll just come to the report and I'll stick to my 5 minutes. So last year, around 7th of October, Broadband India Forum had organized a technical session on the opportunities and challenges of IPv6 implementation. The idea was to dwell more on what the existing opportunities are, the challenges for the implementation of IPv6, because it is critical for the country, and what could be the road ahead. The speakers at the session was Mr. Anil Jain, who is the CEO Nixie, Ms. Deepa Tyagi, former Senior DDG TEC from the Ministry of Communication, Mr. Geoff Houston, who is the Chief Scientist of APNIC, Mr. B. Nagaraj, who is the Senior Executive Vice President, Reliance Jio, Mr. Prasanna Gokhale, who is the CTO of ACT Broadband. Dr. Satya N. Gupta was there from the IPv6, Bharat IPv6 Forum. So this document, which is released today, it's not an exhaustive research, but it reflects some of the views expressed by the speakers during the session. And I'll try to highlight some of the key points here. It was felt that for promoting IPv6 adoption, there has to be a focus on creating awareness about the benefits of IPv6 adoption. And these benefits could be in terms of cost efficiency, the availability, the stronger security features, availability of services, compatibility to newer technologies like 5G and IoT, etc., amongst all other stakeholders. It was also felt necessary to encourage businesses to promote and adopt IPv6, such as in the form of encouraging them to develop more differentiated services only on IPv6, providing incentives to equipment makers to create IPv6 compliant equipments, devices, and chipsets. It was felt that there should be more open discussions between the stakeholders to clarify the gray areas, take cognizance of the and feedback as to how to remove the bottlenecks in its adoption. Many of the speakers felt that the internet and IPv6 has been open and accessible network resources, which facilitates the adoption of internet and has led to the growth of innovation and the use of internet. So if we want the internet to keep working, we need to keep the larger picture in mind. Globally, we have some common interests. We should keep those and balance our local interests so that there can be a coherence between the global common interests and the, what our interests are, so that the internet remains open, neutral, and accessible. And obviously, we need to embrace newer technologies and innovations. So there were 5 key action items which this report actually recommends, and I'll just highlight them quickly. The first recommendation is to mandate all equipment manufactured and imported to be IPv6 compliant, and also make it a mandatory requirement under Make in India initiative. The second recommendation is to incentivize equipment makers, device makers, and chip manufacturers to produce IPv6 compliant equipments, devices, and chipsets. The third recommendation is to encourage government departments, industry to procure IPv6 compliant equipment and devices and start to gradually phase out IPv4 only compliant equipments from their network. The fourth recommendation is to encourage a government and industry collaboration to design need-based and customized capacity building initiatives to promote adoption of IPv6. Industry should include IPv6 adoption as their strategy goal, as in big companies like Jio have already done it, but others also need to do, because it has to be a bit top-down, so that there is a continuous growth in business in a technology-led business environment. And the fifth recommendation is to create an open multi-stakeholder platform for dialogue on IPv6. And the objective of this platform would be to discuss best practices, learn from each other's, what people have done, discuss the challenges, and try to work towards addressing them. This multi-stakeholder platform should include people from the government, industry, academia, technology companies, experts, who can all work together to create a national common narrative, which can be part of the government's IPv6 policy. While this is something which we have recommended, but we also feel that this is a continuous process, and as time progresses, this document needs to be revisited. Certain things which have been done need to be removed, and other things which are important at that point of time need to come in. But we look forward to the inputs from different communities, especially the business, the government, the academia, etc., as the civil society also, as to how can it be made more operational. So we look forward to your thoughts on it, and hopefully with time there may be some upgradations even in the document. And last but not the least, just to add, when we are talking about an open, when we look at what the report also suggests is the nation has some interests which needs to be protected. There are some global interests which needs to be protected, and both of them can be married very easily. National interest does not mean a global interest is compromised, or if you're looking at global interest, national interest will be compromised, because internet is a global resource. It's not a national resource. So we need to be looking at it in a way. yes, we need to understand how internet flows, how things flow. Just as Mr. Gupta was mentioning about root servers, we do have 13 root servers across the globe. We have several instances within the country. The idea is not the root servers, it is to understand how the flow happens and that our internet never gets, we have the adequate resources and the internet flows without someone trying to stop. I think that is the concern. We do have several instances in the country today, so that's not the challenge. And I do not think at this point of time, the 13 is going to increase to at least 14 or 15 at this point of time. After all, it maintains the domain names. It's the root zone side. That's all from me at this point. Happy to take questions if anyone has it. Thank you.
Thank you, Amrita ji, for a very comprehensive overview of the white paper. I now welcome Mr. Anupam Agarwal, Chairman of the India Internet Foundation, to moderate the panel discussion on the same topic as the white paper title, State of IPv6 in India and Way Forward. As part of the Corporate Industry Forums and Standards Cell in TCS, he manages the Secretariat of ISO Subcommittee on Software and Systems Engineering and is the convener of the Working Group on Communications and Outreach. A Chevening Fellow on Cybersecurity, he is the chair of India Internet Foundation, a not-for-profit organization working on internet operations, research and security of critical internet infrastructure. Anupam ji, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Arunji, and thank you, Broadband India Forum, for doing this event today. It is one thing to do a webinar on one particular topic, but the way Broadband India Forum has continued the conversation over last 1 year, this is really amazing and inspiring under the leadership of TV Ramachandran. So thank you, TV sir, for pushing all of us to bring things to a closure, and you are always inspiring. So thank you so much. And in my panel discussion today, I again invite Mr. S.N. Gupta, whom all of you have heard in his initial remarks. But Mr. Gupta will continue the conversation in this panel along with the other panelists. Apart from that, we have Mr. Abhishek Mishra. He is Assistant Manager in IRENE, Nixie, responsible for administering both IPv4 and IPv6 address allocation for the Indian territory at IRENE, which is being done for last 10 years. He has a wide exposure in government and corporate sectors, and his career is spanning over last 15 years. He has been actively involved in providing inputs for the policy development process of IPNIC, as well as raising IPv6 related awareness in the country. So welcome, Abhishek, to this panel discussion. My other panelist is Mr. B. Nagaraj. He is Senior Executive Vice President in Reliance Jio Infocom. He is a technology competent and customer focused leader with extensive telecom industry experience of more than 44 years. And this is a huge amount of experience, and we are glad to have you here in this panel discussion. As part of his journey, he has been responsible for setting for multiple data networks while he was in DOT, Reliance Infocom, and now in Reliance Jio. He has been responsible for putting India on IPv6 leadership across the globe through the successful deployment of IPv6 in Jio network. So welcome, Mr. Nagaraj, to this panel discussion. My other panelist is Mr. Pankaj Chaturvedi, who is a Vice President Special Project in Lightstorm Telecom Ventures. With over 30 years of rich experience in technology and business, he is actively associated with the ISP community for over 2 decades. Part of the organizing committee of INNOG, which is a fundamental group working on network operators coming together. He has served as secretary of ISOC Delhi chapter and is an active participant of IPNIC, ICANN, CENOG and INNOG meetings. He has also served as address supporting organization nominee on the 2020 and 2021 nominating committee of ICANN. So welcome, Pankaj, to this panel discussion. So with the panelists all set, I'll start the conversation with Abhishek. So Abhishek, you are currently managing the IRENE operations, and
right.
you are absolutely on the top of the pyramid to look at how India is using IPv6. So sitting from your position, what is your view that how is the IPv6 takeoff in India? Does it really matter that we need to be on the top of the chart, or is there a ground level deployment also happening, or just people are just taking IPv6 and just not using it? So what is your view from where you sit and observe IPv6 deployment? Over to you, Abhishek.
Yeah, so hope I'm audible to everyone.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. So before coming to the state of IPv6, I would like to share the status of IPv4.
Please.
So at current, we can say that in way back in 2011, when this IPv4 started, so the IDA has given last/8 pools of IPv4 to all the RIRs in 2011, and they it's up to the RIR to allocate a policy how to distribute that IPv4 to their region. So in the last/8, as on date, only APNIC is the only RIR which has IPv4 address left. All the other RIRs, the IPv4 address is completely exhausted. And from APNIC also, only 17% of the IPv4 address which is available with APNIC. Rest other are already distributed to all the countries, all the economies which are present under the APNIC region. So starting that, it is very, very high time that we should move on to IPv6 and start using the IPv6. So coming to the current state of IPv6, where we are now. If we see the stats right now, that the adoption of IPv6 is 77%. But if you dug in more, then only the top 4 ISPs, if you say Jio, Airtel, Bharti, Idea, and Vodafone, if you they have the maximum IPv6 adoption, and you can say the IPv6 traffic. If you remove these 4 top service providers, then the IPv6 adoption is below 5%. So which is not good, and that is the area where we need to work. If we take the example of Ireland, that how many IPv4 and IPv6 we have allocated. We have allocated to for more than 4,000 organizations, and out of which 1100 has taken IPv6 along with IPv4. So here also the percentage is 30%, but more of them have taken because of it comes free with IPv4. Right? So I think that is the percentage more than 50%. So that people should start using IPv6. It's not just that you are getting free, that you take it IPv6 and just it should start using IPv6. You should start deploy IPv6, because if you want to expand your network, then there is no other option. There is no IPv4 available. That is the IPv6 is the only option. So coming to the what are the problems? Why people are afraid to adopt IPv6, or they are afraid to implement IPv6? The first problem which I have analyzed, that it is the complexity of the size. That because we are used to the subnetting of IPv4, which is quite easy, a 32-bit address. So there is a lack of trained people, trained staff who want to who deploy actually the network admins, the system admins, who actually deploy this IPv6 in the network. So it's lack of knowledge for them. They usually afraid of that 132-bit size, how to do subnetting, because subnetting is also a bit complex in IPv6. So first problem is that lack of the trained people. Second one is not all the websites are IPv6 compatible. I'm talking about the government as well as the private websites. So because most of the ISPs, when I ask them that why you are not making your networks dual stack, or giving both to your customers, or giving IPv6 to the customers, so most of them come back to us that most of the websites are not IPv6 compatible. So when their customers they try to log on to some website and it is not IPv6 supportive, so they are not able to access that. And that customers call their ISPs and they said that, sir, your internet is not working, because they don't know the exact problem, what the exact problem was. They only say to them that your internet is not working. So this is the second problem which I have realized, that the websites should be IPv6 compatible. The third one is that the big networks, you can say that the backbones which are old devices they are using, and that devices are not IPv6 compatible. They are not IPv6 supportive. So they are, and it at a huge cost is also involved to upgrade all those devices. So that is especially one. Many cases I have gone through, which are the cameras, the DVR of these cameras. They don't support IPv6. So they complain us that the device is not supportive. That's why they find it difficult to actually implement IPv6. So realizing onto this, that NICSI has started some initiatives that we have started a NICSI Academy, where we have available courses with us, which are starting with the IPv6 fundamental course, then we have IPv6 advanced course, then we have IPv6 security, and other technologies which are currently like the DNS, like BGP with IPv6 also. So we have started NICSI Academy as one of the initiatives, where we have these courses available, so anyone can just access to that, and they can have the video is available there, the complete depth of IPv6, how to get it, how to implement it, and what are the actually how to use that IPv6 in your network. Second initiative which we have started is an IP group, where we have formed a set of experts who are IPv6 expert. Mr. Dayal sir from he's DDGNT, he's the chairman of that group. So he along with 5 other experts are there. So if anyone finding it difficult to implement IPv6, they can just fill the form is there. You just fill up that form, fill up your details, and we will then contact you, and we will explain you, and we will help you out, not to provide you support, but to get that IPv6 implemented and just get your network going. So this is the second initiative which we have started. The third initiative which we have started, we have developed a IPv6 index portal, where you can see the current IPv6 adoption, IPv6 traffic, all the domains which are IPv6 compatible. You can easily go and just check the status of that, compared to not only in India, but outside India also. What is the status of the IPv6 adoption among the countries of the world? So these are the 3 initiatives which we have started. The important, this IPv6 index, there where you can check your website, whether your website is IPv6 compatible or not. So this is also important. So we have initiated these initiatives. Along with this, we on monthly basis, we are organizing webinars for IRIN affiliates, as well as the engineers from other network also, who are based in the Indian economy, for ISPs and others. So monthly webinars, the topics will be IPv6 security, with the help of APNIC, ICANN. So on monthly basis, we are organizing this webinars also, and trying to train more and more people, and trying to just the fear of IPv6, the complexity of this. We just want to break that barrier, and I think we will do that. We will get success in that.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
that's all I think I have done it in my 8 minutes. I hope
yes,
so.
you have done fantastically. So there are 2-3 very significant points which you have made, that lack of trained staff, then government itself not adopting IPv6 at times, and then further the devices are also not ready. On the contrary, there is an issue of fear of IPv6. So I think that's the title of a next book, if somebody wants to write it. Fear of IPv6, possibly that will be a good title. But so with this context, I'll move to Mr. Nagraj. Were you not afraid of IPv6? What made you go into IPv6 bang on and use it? Were you not afraid of having a lack of content, devices not being ready? So how did you manage this entire scenario, and what prompted you to go, and what should we learn from your experience? Mr. Nagraj.
Yeah, thank you very much, BAF, as well as other panelists. Thank you for involving me in the interesting discussion over here. So I will start off, if somebody can actually put my presentation also, that will be good. But actually then I will like to start by answering what Mr. Anupam actually has raised. So we were actually a company which actually has been just 5 years old, Reliance Jio. And when we actually started this particular journey, even though actually we started with certain IPv4, the IPv4 resources actually was not really available, just like other operators or other countries actually had done. So adoption of IPv6 actually was not only when I was in Jio. I had actually when I was in government at the time, and actually I had in TEC. At the time itself, actually I had actually realized that IPv6 has to be the way to go. Otherwise, we'll not be able to grow. So in all the locations where I was actually doing, I was actually trying to actually push IPv6. It was not easy. A technology like IP itself was a new things in 1999, 2000. And IP MPLS was a further new technology, if you say complexity. And now actually even I actually see the similar thing, the applications like video, even actually cloud, people are afraid to start with IPv6. You said the IPv6 fearness, because you know that the technology is new. When I try to develop the technology, they will try to take the safer route and not complicate whatever is already complications coming, but trying to take it out IPv6. But actually we took these things in various this one. For example, we started actually making the network as completely IPv6. Of course, when you say IP MPLS, it is basically an IPv4 driven. So we actually made a dual stack so that any application, any servers, any devices, they can actually work end to end with IPv6. This actually since actually we had already the confidence of the management was there with us. We got a solid push, and we actually started actually insisting all the vendors who actually come to our network has to be IPv6. So we started the network devices, all the things actually to be IPv6. The management should be on IPv6. So it was not easy. The OSS, BSS platforms, they were actually not supporting. So we actually started identifying which are not IPv6 supported, which are IPv4. We actually cornered them and actually make end-to-end IPv6 enabled. So this is the thing. Next slide, please. And out of this, this one, you know, I will actually, there are various subjects in which actually we promoted, but I will actually take the main example. We have got 350 million customers today in our network. And actually about 70% of our IP traffic actually goes on IPv6. 30% actually still goes on IPv4. That is because they are actually come to the different aspects where actually that websites, applications in the internet, they are still IPv4 dominated. So actually in my network, I take it as an IPv6, but actually I'll have to do a CGNAT and I can translate it to public v4 and send it across to the network. And until actually that this is a slow progress, I had actually 80% when we started. Actually, I'm seeing more and more websites and applications, popular websites and applications, they're coming up with only IPv4. I give an example. We were actually working with WhatsApp. And WhatsApp actually, they were actually telling they cannot support IPv6, they have got only IPv4. But actually, when I actually we did certain this one, actually, I started directly sending IPv6 queries to WhatsApp, and I got the response. Then I went back to WhatsApp administration and I said, when even servers are already supporting IPv6, why you are saying that you are not supporting IPv6? Then they realized that they had actually upgraded certain things and all. IPv6 was already supported, but they were actually not aware. So it's actually very interesting that actually a big application like WhatsApp itself was struggling that they don't have IPv4 basic support, but actually we actually made them realize. That means whichever what we cornered was don't take all the entire world websites. Actually, we cannot change it. Take 80% of the traffic, 20% of the popular website, which actually really comprises to 80% of the traffic, that you change it into IPv6. And once actually you do or make them dual stack, once you do that, automatically your IPv6 usage, your customers actually will like to start going together. The second, I'll actually come back to this particular aspect slightly later. The second aspect actually is to work upon the devices. The devices is not exactly one device. We have got a SIM. We have got a SIM OEM layer. And then we have got a Volta platform. That means over the air, you can actually change the IPv4 and v6. And then lastly, the devices itself. There are 4 or 5 components other than the application which actually involves in IPv6. When we actually started our journey, there were SIMs were available only on IPv4. So IPv4 actually was taken in bulk and it was distributed and it was actually into the customer's network. So I was actually already saddled with IPv4. The OEMs were not supporting IPv6, even though the devices, actually there were, luckily when we started the devices, actually more and more new devices coming, 60 to 70% of the devices actually were IPv6. But the SIM and the OEM, they were not supporting. So we worked with the OEM platforms and actually made them everybody, about 3 or 4 major vendors, we made them actually into IPv6. Then actually I had to change the SIM from the new SIMs, actually there are IPv6 enabled, but the older SIMs I had to upgrade. So over the year I had to change IPv6 into IPv4 into IPv6. That's actually a difficult thing because many customers, it's doing when the internet for 350 million is a huge exercise. To tell you frankly, circle by circle we are taking and doing. We have completed the few circles, and actually then we have made this actually as completely V6, and then actually then we have got about 93% of the devices today available in the market, because in India we don't have a thing like we'll actually, just like in other countries they do, the all mobilities actually are given only by the vendors, I mean the service providers, and they actually can actually do whatever they want in the devices can then release. But it's not like that for us in India. Anybody can actually purchase any instrument and they can actually put the SIM and they can work. So today 93% actually support. Originally we started 60 to 70%, now today 93% support. And we are actually changing over the year. We actually run for almost about nearly 50 programs, almost about on a 2 months basis, continuously on every night, to actually try whether those devices are turned on, so that when they are turned on, I can actually change the SIM from IPv6 to V6. And many devices are not turned on, many SIMs are not actually put on active size, and until unless actually I achieve about 90% of the SIMs actually are IPv6 enabled, I cannot enable my IPv6 end-to-end. How we are doing? We are doing an XLAT. So I turn on XLAT, I actually allocate only IPv6 as to the device, and the device actually takes care of an IPv4, which is requirement locally, and they actually come to my network completely on IPv6. And actually when I see the destination IP address, of course, actually last time also I had mentioned, in DNS we do a quad query first response, and actually if E6 is available, I will never send it actually on IPv4. The destination's IPv6 only I send across. So source IPv6, destination IPv6, they go automatically. But if there are unfortunately large websites and applications in the internet which actually are on IPv4, I have to resolve on IPv4. And when the router sees an IPv4, it sends it across to CGNAT, and CGNAT actually we actually attach them with a public v4, and we send it across to internet. So the subscribers VoLTE digital entire thing is a journey by itself. And today what we have done is that our internet Geo CDN we have made as a completely IPv6. We have made our own Geo phones we actually released, we made IPv6, and that is how we actually made more and more network on IPv6. Next slide, please. So, and now actually what we did was in all the OEMs and all, we could not make only IPv6. We said dual stack is a must. There is absolutely no limitation. And actually then when we actually pushed them, today we have got all OEMs which are supporting a dual stack in all end-to-end. And device OEM and chipset challenges I actually explained already. For the CLAT, this one compliances today, still we have got 8% chipsets actually fail. And actually then we are working with those, this one actually that actually make it over here. And actually we actually, what we do is in our gateways, we actually put them, so those which we are not able to make into IPv6, that alone we allocate IPv4, and so that actually that their communication is possible. But actually this actually that the 8% is we are seeing slowly the older devices are disappearing and newer devices are coming. So more and more devices are becoming CLAT compliant as well as IPv6 compliant. OEM issues, actually I have this one, this was a very difficult exercise. Almost 5-6 years we actually struggled with them. We had almost actually succeeded in that. SIM firmware drive limitation, we actually worked with those people and we overcome that one. And the IPv4 v6 through the TCP session, that actually which solved the problem. Then operator environment challenges, unused SIM inventory in the market, which actually are there, which are only IPv4 program. We actually slowly working day and night. We are trying to actually change it into IPv6. Some of the SIM actually we are actually foregoing. And if the people say it's not working, actually we actually give them a new SIM. Unable to program IPv4 in SIM due to the device which is offline. That is why I mentioned the SIM actually we are not this one because the device is kept offline. I mean, many times actually they are gone outside and they have never switched on. So that is the second problem. But actually they are in the network. Sometimes they switch on, but whenever we are running the program, they are actually not on. Impact services during roaming, because actually that some place actually where actually we have enabled already IPv6 and the XLAT, but they actually go to some place where it's not yet implemented. So actually until this entire huge exercise we started last year after somewhere in October when I had last time addressed this particular forum, and actually that we actually will complete all entire country somewhere in this year by December. But actually this in this particular period actually some circles are done, some circles are in the work in progress. So we actually had to solve the roaming problems also, so that when people actually from one to another they actually move, they will not have problems. Next slide. Next slide, please.
Yeah, can we go to the next slide? Yeah.
Yeah. So one slide, please. Please.
Yeah.
We jumped on the slide.
Can we go back? Yeah.
Okay. Next slide. This actually covered. Okay. The enterprise segment. Actually, that enterprise segment actually is a difficult, another difficult journey. They are actually Mr. Abhishek actually mentioned the people take in especially enterprise segment, they are all very, very hesitant. In fact, they actually want a public IPv4 allocation. They otherwise they say they quote that I get from the other service provider. Why actually I should take it? So we actually at last started making, okay, if you use IPv6, I will actually give you cheaper connectivity, cheaper this one. I will give you more bandwidth. So this type of promotional, this one actually I had to actually do it to actually entice the enterprise segment to use IPv6. There is a continuous demand of IPv4 actually is there, but IPv6 when we are actually even pushing in this way, it is very difficult. So one of the last time I actually gave the exact websites also, but actually then it's a very slowest moving is the website, web content, slowest transition journey. Today, out of the 60 top websites, which actually we have been monitoring for the last 18 months, only 12 websites actually supports the dual stack. Rest of the people actually not actually bothered at all. If actually this is the way it goes, actually it will take million years. Actually, we say that billion IP addresses are available in IPv6. It will take million years actually really go out of IPv4. And until unless the mindset changes, it's very difficult to actually completely remove. Devices like CGNAT always remain. So enforcing IPv4 trading in market, actually I mentioned this one at a service cost. So actually that we are actually trying to promote. If you use IPv6, I'll actually give a cheaper rate service. Next, please. Next slide.
No, Mr. Nagraj, we are a little short on time, so if you can.
No problem, sir. This is only I will actually mention about the cameras. Actually, what we did was cameras was a big problem. Actually, it's mentioned by Abhishek also. That I want to touch upon. We started manufacturing our own cameras. We actually involved the cameras vendors. Today, we actually manufacture IPv6 cameras, and whatever we are using in Geo, it's all IPv6 camera. So, I mean, these are some of the things actually I thought actually I should actually put it forward to the forum. I'm sorry if I have actually not been able to cover my time, this one. Sorry for that. Thank you.
No, thank you, Mr. Nagraj. It is always a pleasure to hear you, and particularly in the context of what we are discussing today. What we felt that the might of Reliance was used in some way to overcome some of the problems. But is it really true for other telecom ventures as well? So, setting this context, Pankaj, bringing you onto the discussion, what do you think? Is it okay to how easy it is for other players to change the market conditions to suit the IPv6 deployment, or is it hard, or what should be done?
Thank you, Anupamji. This IPv6 is an issue which is close to my heart, and I've been hearing about this almost for the last 10 years now. So if you will go back, why first of all the IPv4s are not available. First of all, the most important thing is that in the early 80s, the INA, they allocated large organizations a large chunk of IPs, IPv4s before the RIRs were born. So out of the 4.3 billion IPv4s which are available, 35% of the IPv4s are lying with these organizations. And these are not, allocated to any RIR. They are just being kept and unused. So basically it's a value for money, and which Mr. Nagaraj was talking about, the cost. And we know that the IP address today sells for almost $50 an IPv4, single IP in a trading in a resale market. So one is that none of the RIRs have been able to do anything on this. We have, personally, I have also spoken on these issues in a couple of ICANN meetings, but nobody wants to touch it because they say this is even before the ICANN started the this regional registry. So this is one very important point which I thought I must raise, that 35% of the IPs are unused and they are just lying in somebody's storage. Okay, so that's the reason the IPs have got exhausted, and now the only way it has to be taken care is by the IPv6. But I would also want to say one more thing on the V6, that yes, it is heartening to see that Reliance Jio is leading and in the deployment of the IPv6. I congratulate Mr. B. Nagaraj, his team members, and everybody at Jio that they have shown India is to be one of the top countries where the IPv6 utilization is. But if you look at that the numbers are mainly because of the 4G VoLTE deployments by be it Reliance Jio, Bharti Airtel, and rest of the TSPs. But if you move out of which Abhishek also talked about, there is hardly adoption of around less than 5%. So why we talk about less than 5%? It's not just that I cannot do a dual stack deployment or we have not done it. Let's all remember that this IPv6 mandate from the Department of Telecommunications, the licensor, has already been there for last 4 or 5 years, and they've been asking each of my terms and inspection. They would ask me and all the operators, where is your IPv6 deployment? And people will show a dual stack, one small server, one router, and they'll say yes, they'll send a string of IPv6 and say, "Dekho ji, humne kar diya." That's all. Now the government has mandated by end of this year, we need to, they have mandated by December 22, they're forcing everybody to start. But all these operators I talked about, they all own extra large, the ownership of IPv4 addresses as well, because I've been attending APNIC for last many years. So all these operators I talked about, they have millions of IPv4s with them. So you cannot run a network without IPv4 today. Even if to run a CGNAT, a dual stack, you definitely need lots and lots of IPs, what is the allocation today? The allocation today, which Abhishek talked about, is a max for a new ISP, you get a /23 IPv4, which is 512 IPs v4. We get unlimited, you get a /48 or a /32 block of a V6 as well. But what do I do with that? The questions are that deployment, number of websites, 1/3 of the websites are using IPv6. We also talked about, Mr. Nagaraj also said that customers are not at all, conversant. Although I personally have been attending training programs of, V6 training with various NOGs, as you mentioned. I've been organizing V6, the SANOGs, INOGs, and in many of the NOGs, including last, I think it was we had a keynote from Ramesh Chandra, my friend from Jio. So he talked about the V6 as well. So, but it is not taking up anywhere. So my viewpoint is, even after training some 500 or 600 engineers today on the ISPs and the TSP, the training needs to be given to the CTOs and the CIOs of the corporate world. Because those are the people who are hesitant, because they are very, it's easy for them to remember 10.10.ka and how to do the subnet, /32 ka, /29 ko kaise karna hai, and that's the very easy. But if we tell them that this is how it is going to good for you, Dr. Satyen Gupta also talked about the security aspect. So somebody needs to train them that, sir, if you use a V6, it is more secure. And the most important thing on the compliance part, we need to inculcate to all the enterprise CTOs and the CIOs, because now the mandate of IPDR has come. Because the IPDR mandate from the government is to the licensees, and the licensees in turn have to take a compliance from their enterprise customers that they have to maintain an IPDR. So which can only happen if you start using an IPv6 segment, because nowhere that you can, create the kind of IPDR compliance which we need to do as an ISP or a TSP. It is no way that, there's huge investments in, logging, those incidents and everything. So the easiest thing is to do is we need to go back to the CTOs and the CIOs and tell them that it is good for you. Mr. Nagaraj talked about a very good thing that, you subsidize internet, but I don't know how many of the smaller ISPs can do it, sir. But first we need to have a deployment and then go out in the market. But if somebody has purchased an IP address from the market, and if he is selling an internet to a enterprise or a retailer, so he will simply say that whosoever is giving me this service, I'll buy from him. So I definitely want that this training program, which we talked about, Abhishek talked about the lack of knowledge, lack of training, and so not only the engineers, it is now the customer also needs to be trained. That's the point which I'm trying to emphasize here. And so. Of course, there are various ways and means. I don't want to get into the technology here that how the CGNAT will work or how the dual stack will work. But what we need to do, emphasize is that the adoption is the most important thing. Way forward, ISPs, for them it is easy for them to go and buy a subnet from the market, than investing on the manpower or investing a lot of time in training the customers. Because retailers, the retail ISPs today, they'll do, one IP to maybe 8,000 or 5,000, kind of a natting. And I don't know how those nats will work, but what database will be stored. But the smaller ISPs are working like that, and they are trying to source IPs from here and there. They'll have different companies under which they'll take a /23 from IRIN or from APNIC, and they'll try to run their network. So I definitely want that the adoption. One I said about that the adoption of the websites, which is not there, which is 1/3. The other is that the training program is the most important thing, because without which just by mandating that by 2022 that you do the rollout, or it has to be done, will not happen, because there are so many issues, and the industry is not ready. So that's what I would say, that it's a very, very slow progress, but we need to start somewhere. And we started some 7-8 years back, as I said, but we've reached nowhere, except that a company like Reliance or Bharti Airtel, or those stature companies, because they invested into their technology, they did not have the legacy networks. Some of them had legacy, but they transformed into the newer network. But that is not something which a smaller ISP or a Class B or a Class C ISP can do. Maybe some Class A ISPs who are doing a new deployment, definitely they can do it. But it all depends on the customer's requirements, because nobody wants to lose their customers. So that's all I have, I thought.
Thank you. So thank you, Pankaj.
Yeah.
So very clearly highlighting the fact that the ground level deployment is still somewhere around 5% if we take out the big players from the equation, which was also told by Abhishek as well. Apart from the
yes, it is less than 5%.
And one important point which you also made was that we need to train the CIOs and the CTOs.
Yes.
That's what will create the demand for IPv6 deployment at enterprise level. So thank you so much, Pankaj. I'll come back to you again if time permits. But in meanwhile, I'll request Mr. Gupta to take the stage and to continue the conversation which he started, that it is the sovereign right of the country to use IPv6 to make it Atmanirbhar. So, Mr. Gupta, when you were saying that it is sovereign right to protect the internet, you also talked about trusted internet as part of your initial remarks. Okay, what exactly do you have in your thoughts that what should be the future roadmap? What should be done exactly? So we have understood the ground level situation from Abhishek. We have understood a large player like Jio saying that what they have done, We have understood from Pankaj that where he wants to take the training forward. So overall, as Bharat IPv6 Forum Chairman, what do you think are 2 or 3 key next steps which should be taken?
Oh, thank you, Sab. And also great points have been made by Nagaraj, Abhishek, and also Pankaj. And you have really pointed out, just to start with your assignment, like you asked Nagaraj, fear of IPv6, but with his experience, there was no evidence of fear. Actually, according to me, your question should be, and that is what I'll also be reply, fear of missing out IPv6. Actually, the people have to be told about the fear of missing out IPv6, not the fear of IPv6. As Geo have already proved it, there is no fear, it is for their benefits. And also, as it is mentioned by Abhishek, this 5% or less than 5%, actually dismal position is with the government telcos, both the government telcos, and I mean BSNL and RailTel, they are not just below 5%. Actually, they are 0.15%, less than 1%. And that is really a shameful thing and a worrying point. For this, one thing which has been done by government is, as Pankaj was also mentioning, that they have made the deadline of dual stack. Dual stack, as Nagaraj Saab mentioned, that you have to have both V4 and V6, whether you are a content provider or whether you are a website guy or a operator or a enterprise or a device manufacturer. So it has to be dual stack, and the ball is in the court of operators and ISPs. And by end of this year, you have to have at least dual stack. So that is the main mandate of the government. I think if government can force them by more enforcement, motivation, whatever way, that is what is required. And I like to quote here the example of US. As you know, they are the pioneer in V4. They garnered the 35% what Pankaj mentioned was garnered by their enterprises, but overall they garnered 75% of V4 address overall, including their operator, their governments, all the departments actually. So with that, they were laggard as far as V6 was concerned because they were not feeling the pinch. But they, and that is last year, they are the first country in the world to set what is called a sunset clause on the V4, a cutoff date of V4, and that is end of 2024. So even US have done that, and it is very difficult to dare to do that kind of cutoff date. And US have already done, though our government have done dual stack at least to start with, because they are fearing of disruption if they make a sunset clause for that. Of course, for that, two things are required. One, of course, is the training, and that is what our NICSI has to play a role, and they have been mandated by the Honorable Minister also to train, like Abhishek mentioned about the NICSI Academy, that IP Guru kind of initiative. Earlier also government had a lot of initiative, including the organization of our chief guest, UK Saab also. A lot of trainings were initiated, but I think they did not percolate it to the ground level or to the top level, maybe as Pankaj mentioned, CXO level. So that is what is required. So these two things in any case are required. And now as was mentioned by Geo also, that they mandated their suppliers, the device manufacturer network, that you have to give me dual stack minimum, or it should be IPv6. IPv6 logo program is also started by TC, which is own. So they have to be enforced. But my own thing, and that is about this trusted infrastructure and having your own root server in a decentralized manner. As Amrita mentioned, there are 13 root servers, 10 are in US, 2 in Europe, and 1 in Asia, and that is in Japan. Actually, the beauty of root server is it resolves the query, actually DNS query, the domain name queries, convert them to IP address, and then convert them to physical place where it is terminated. And a lot of communication happens between the nearest root server and the user node actually. And for that, there are delays and sometimes there are disruption also. So if you have a nearby root server, like for India, nearest is, as I mentioned, in Japan. And so if we can have someone in the neighborhood, so it will always help. But more than that, our forum is advocating for the capacity building, skilling, and that is the training requirement again. But on the root server, not on just using or adopting the V6. That is a simpler thing. But managing, creating a root server, then they make you real expert, and that helps in everything else. It helps in, configuration also, maintenance also, because that is the core technology of internet, the root server part of it. So that is what we are advocating. We should have that. And luckily, there are a lot of learning from international experience. First of all, the ICANN and these IETF have a RFC for having a root server for V6. Why V6? Because V4, as Amrita mentioned, technically, you cannot have more than 30. You can have mirror and instances, but the real root server are limited to 13 in number because of the technological issue. But then the IETF, the engineering, Internet Engineering Task Force, RFC, have a RFC for having a root server in V6. And technology, there is no limitation. On V6, as you can have infinite IP address, you can have multiple root server, decentralized root server. There is no limitation. So that is the starting point. Then there was a project Yeti in Europe. The Yeti, basically, India was also a partner in the exercise through AirNet. And the China was also a partner there. And so they created a framework or a POC, proof of concept, a simulation kind of thing, that you can have a V6 only root server without disrupting anything, without affecting anything, without any technology limitation. And when you create a V6 root server, you also learn the core technology of root server, domain name root server, the core technology, so that you get expertise in V4 also. You become more efficient in making use of V4 by having this. So that is what is our aim, to get the learning of Yeti and then start from there. They have done the experiment, they have done the POC, but real deployment of a root server need a distribution network. A lot of expertise is required, a lot of availability, redundancies, and trust is required. So to build a trust in your network, you need trust from the international community that you will not tweak with the normal internet, which you are not allowed, which is not your sovereign right to tweak the internet. But yes, what I mentioned about the sovereign right, and I'm speaking from the minister's mouth, actually, the sovereign right is that I'm as a nation have free to protect my part of the network from cyber attack, from cyber threats, actually. That is my right. So yes, technically, they say you cannot do a balkanization of your network like China wall garden kind of thing. But it is possible. It is possible in V4. In technology, it is possible. There is another technology in addition to 5G, IoT, and blockchain. These three technology put together and combined with V6, you can solve any problem. You can do whatever you want. You can create value by collaboration. And the V5, these 5G will not succeed unless V6 is used, actually, because of slicing. They can separate a networks, divide into many slices. You need multiple addresses, actually, for the same client. So those kind of things are there. So a lot of work actually is required, and it is needed. It is needed. So that is what is our aim, to bring the awareness. But I still will support the training at all level, and training of the root server also, not only just use of the V6. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gupta. It was a very important point that training is requirement. But I am little intrigued on your root server dimension. So Pankaj, I'd like to bring you in. What do you think? Are we not trained enough to create a root server instance? What should be the roadmap on that? And what it is so difficult to create an IPv6 root server, which Mr. Gupta is reiterating multiple times that we should do it because it is important.
So what I understand, see, Dr. Gupta, he I called him, he's a god of IPv6, so he understands, he knows much more than what I know. But my limited understanding is that there are few instances, not the root servers. There are few instances in India which supports the V4. These are L root as well as I think a couple of J root servers currently deployed in India. And what Dr. Gupta is talking about is the exclusive V6 root server, which IETF has already come out with a specification, and anybody can install any instance anywhere. So nobody is stopping you from deploying your own instance. But a root server or L or a J will not come. L root instance, J root instance can be installed, but not a root server per se, because those are limited in nature, and that IETF will not permit more than what it is. But for securing the internet, see the point which Dr. Gupta probably talking about is if internet gets cut from all the sides, if all your subsea cables are down, will the internet still work? There will still be resolution, or somebody will hijack? Because right now you may have heard that in this Ukraine and Russia conflict, the ICANN was asked that you remove the .ru domain and there's a few other Russian domain names from the DNS itself, from the root server itself, but which rightly, or I would say rightly, but somebody may say that the ICANN refused to do that. So that is the security which we need to work on. But root servers, definitely anybody can deploy. It requires some kind of a training program. I would say that, maybe under the aegis of NIXI or some telecom service providers together may come out with, Mr. Nagra is a veteran in the industry. Maybe he may want to say how this is to be done, maybe in a geo environment or a Bharti environment somewhere, because all these guys are large and they have their CSR initiative as well, because this needs a lot of money as well. It's not just a simple that put up server and
thank you, Pankaj. But I definitely think this is not a CSR thing. So it is. So coming to NIXI again, very quickly, do you think, Abhishek, NIXI, apart from the initiatives which we have talked about, can the proposal of Mr. Gupta to create an IPv6 root instance, is this something that is in your mind, or are you thinking about it?
Yes, we are in process of deploying an M root server. Instead of that, actually, we are not allowed to have there are only 13 root servers, like Mr. Gupta said. So we are in talks with JPRS and IPNIC to deploy an instance of M root server, which is not in India. This will be the first M root server. And besides that, rather than root server, I think we should work to build a public DNS of our own, right? That will help us to just the suppose what he was saying, that when the internet are cut, when the root servers are, if anyone, I think root servers is no one's property, I think, what I feel.
I understand.
So if that is cut, if we build a public DNS of our own, so at least we will resolve those websites like Google 8.8. If we have that type of public DNS servers, and we will share that with all the ISPs. So at least all those websites which are hosted in India, that will be resolvable and that can be accessed. China has done that. China has done that. Other European countries have done that, and we should also focus on that.
Thank you.
That will be yeah.
So I understand your point, Abhishek, that you are saying that the public DNS should be there, okay, which will help us in terms of resolution. But the question is that whether this public DNS which we are talking about, is it going to be IPv4 or IPv6 as well? So I think whenever you are thinking of public DNS, you will have to think both in terms of having it in IPv4 as well as IPv6, and that is
yes. I think all the root servers, what as per my knowledge, all the 13 root servers, they are both IPv6 as well as IPv4 compatible.
So not
that they are. Yes,
not everyone is there, but in India, you will be glad to note that some of the instances which are deployed in India, there are 36 instances currently. Out of those, some of the instances are IPv6 enabled as well. Okay.
Yeah.
Particularly for the L instance, those are IPv6 enabled. So we do have certain amount of capability, but I will suggest that Nixie takes when they are working on a public DNS, which you are talking about. Possibly
Right.
it is good to have an IPv6 only root instance as well. So have a look at it whenever you are thinking of the next policy intervention. Very quickly,
Anupam ji, we are way over schedule. Please, if I could just point
I'll just close it. I'll just close it. Final, any comments from Mr. Nagaraj?
You know that I fully agree that whatever IP DNS we put up, we could not have actually survived with IPv6 if that would not have been IPv6 enabled. So today, our network within it's all public domain, but we had structured the DNS within the system that it is secure. It has actually not having the vagaries which actually hits the internet. We are shielded our network from the outside attacks. So there are ways actually in which it can be actually worked. Whether actually we have to actually have a root server of our own, actually I have not seen the need for whatever actually we have been doing so far in the IPv6 and all the securities of IPv6 fully we have been able to actually take care of in the network. We have got primary DNS, secondary DNS, secure DNS. Actually, we have implemented. We have got caches in each of the circles for the DNS. So we have actually we actually interface very less with public internet. That actually will be done only by our primary DNS server, which will actually give it to secondary DNS, which will actually filter it to our geo caches, cache DNS. But actually, that in this particular way, we actually take care of what we actually do with the public internet on a periodic basis. That only we actually monitor. The rest of the things actually, once we do it, we are able to do it perfectly within our system. And for all of our internal, we actually have our DNS for our servers, our routers and all, we actually have our own DNS, which actually we have completely got secured. Having said that, actually, so far I have never actually felt a need of setting up these things. Of course, I just to mention, we are actually also on a public domain, 5 global DNS that somewhere in 1 or 2 years back, it was actually done. .rel and some other actually .geo. This actually about 5 public DNS also we have owned. We are still not actually in the process of deployment. Actually, we are in the process of deployment. Whether at that time, whether actually I need a root server of our own in India, I have to see. But actually, I have not seen for my IPv6 deployment, DNS has come in the way. Having said that, actually, I think I will actually go with an open mind and explore. Probably next time in the forum, I will actually see what actually I have been able to discover. I will take the help of Mr. S.N. Gupta also. I'll come back to you.
Thank you. So thank you, Mr. Nagaraj, Mr. Gupta, Pankaj, and Abhishek. To very quickly, we are way over our time, I have been reminded. So now I'll quickly summarize 2 or 3 pointers which we can take away. One, I really like the idea of Mr. Nagaraj that we need to target 80% of the websites which are generating the traffic, 20% of the websites which are generating 80% of the traffic. So that is one way to move ahead. In terms of capacity building, we are working possibly down the line. We are trying to train the engineers. But Pankaj's point of exploring that we need to train the CIOs and the CXOs is also what is going to create the market. And the Abhishek's point specifically on the devices capability and the initiative of bringing in some more root instances, possibly that's an open area where some amount of research can be done to deploy an IPv6 root instance. And finally, Mr. Gupta's point on ensuring that we need to be Atmanirbhar in the DNS domain, that's a very, very strong point, which is required for to maintain the sovereignty of India. If you look at the Internet Poverty Index, we have started featuring at number 2 already. In terms of poverty. So there are a lot of work to do, and IPv6 can be a way forward in making our rank much lower and not be ranked at number 2. So with this, thank you so much all the panelists for being there, and thank you to all our participants. We have taken a lot of time, more than what was allocated to us. So back to Mr. Arun to take the conversation forward, and
Thank you, Anupamji.
Thank you, Anupamji.
It was a very well moderated panel discussion. I thank all the esteemed panelists also for a very informative and interesting discussion on the progress and future of IPv6 in India. It is my privilege at this point to introduce Mr. TV Ramachandran, President, Broadband India Forum. An esteemed industry veteran, TV has been part of the mobile telephony sector in India since its very inception as the first CEO of Sterling Cellular Delhi and having established and led COAI for 12 years. Recipient of the Voice and Data Lifetime Contribution Award for his mobile telephony in India, he is also an honorary fellow of IET London and IET India. Sir, I request you to say a few words. Over to you, sir. Sir, you're on mute, sir.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute. Thank you very much, Arun, for the kind introduction. It has been really very interesting listening to all the esteemed speakers and panelists. I thank each and every one of them for the brilliant interventions and talks. I will not presume to say anything about IPv6 and all. I'm not a technical expert, so I will desist from that. I would just like to state that BIF has been actively pursuing the facilitation of a robust mechanism and framework for encouraging the development of a globally harmonized best practice on adoption and implementation of latest IPv standards like IPv6 in India. Having Dr. S.N. Gupta, chair of Bharat IPv6, our NGN group, as an integral part of our BIF. He is one of our office bearers. There are only 4 office bearers in BIF, including me, and Mr. SNG is one of them. And he adds eminent value to our activities. So having him at BIF gives us a tremendous advantage. Thank you, sir, for that. I thank every one of the speakers today, Amrita, Anupam Agarwal, Mr. Nagaraj, Mr. Abhishek Mishra, Mr. Pankaj Chaturvedi. Brilliant points have been made by all of them. Of course, the entire session is recorded. We'll keep note of this and follow up on actions also. Today, as part of our efforts, we also released a white paper to sensitize the stakeholders on the importance of IPv6 adoption and constant progress to be made by India in keeping up with the constantly evolving global internet technology and standards scenario. We could not have wished for a more knowledgeable person as our chief guest today for guidance on this. And I am truly honored to welcome our chief guest, Shri UK Srivastava. While he is well known to all, I will still take the liberty and pleasure of introducing him briefly to this august gathering. Mr. UK Srivastava is presently the Director General of NATIPRET, which is the Apex Training and Policy Research Institute of DOT. He is responsible for developing and conducting various webinars and training programs to educate telecom officers on latest telecom technologies. No better person than him for that. He is fantastic right from his earliest days in DOT. He has been a great person for technology and advancement. Prior to joining NATIPRET, he was principal advisor in TRA, looking after telecom networks, spectrum, and licensing. A graduate in electronics engineering with a diploma in management, he's trained in transmission technologies, including optical, radio, and satellite communications. He has been a member of several standing committees on satellite communications, besides managing various telecom activities, including operations, maintenance, training, quality assurance, standardization, and policy. He was deputed to serve in Iraq for 2 years and at ITU headquarters in Geneva for a year and a half, and been associated with various standards development activities of IT. And he has represented India in various conferences of these organizations. He's also served as Vice Chairman of Study Group 7 in ITU-R for a period of 4 years. I now have the privilege of presenting a humble token of our appreciation and gratitude to Sri U.K. Srivastava. With all humility, admiration, and respect, I would now like to read out the citation which we are presenting here. Broadband India Forum wishes to respectfully place on record its thanks and deep appreciation for the outstanding support and prolific contributions in the policy, regulation, standards, and capacity building areas, resulting in the growth, liberalization, and proliferation of digital communications sector in India by Sri U.K. Srivastava during his tenure in various important and key roles in the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India and the Department of Telecommunications, the Ministry of Communications, Government of India, including his latest stint as head of National Telecommunications Institute for Policy Research, Innovations and Training, NATIPRET. He has been seen as a person of tremendous dynamism and domain knowledge. Sri Srivastava has been especially instrumental through a number of outstanding contributions, notably in the areas of unbundling, proliferation of public Wi-Fi, sharing of active and passive infrastructure through enhancement of scope of IP1, amongst many others. We warmly wish Sri U.K. Srivastava continued success in his future endeavors and all happiness and good health on behalf of BIF membership, advisors, associates, partners, and the entire broadband ecosystem in the country. Sir, we thank you for your kind gesture in being here with us. Please accept our humble tribute and our warm regards and thanks for being a true friend, guide, mentor, and pillar of support for the industry through all its challenging times. We hope we shall continue to have the privilege of your wisdom and advice for the think tank of Broadband India Forum going forward as well. With these few words, sir, I would now like to request you to kindly address our guest today on this vibrant discussion on the vital topic of IPv6 adoption in India. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, TVRG. I am really humbled. I don't have words to express my gratitude towards you and Broadband India Forum for all the nice words that you have spoken about me. Mr. Ramchandran, Mr. Rajat Mukherjee, Dr. Satya Gupta, Mr. Arun Mukherjee, Ms. Amrita Chaudhary, eminent panelists of today's webinar. Good evening to all of you. We're so happy to be part of Digital Dialogue. In fact, it rhymes very well with Raisina Dialogues. I'm very happy to release the white paper today. And really, it is a very, very thrilling discussion on IPv6. We in TEC started talking about IPv6 sometimes in 2008, 2009 itself. And I remember that in 2010, eventually, we came out with our first, guidelines for IPv6. And simultaneously, that was sometime in July 2010, if I remember vividly, because that was the time when we started sensitizing all the stakeholders, including central government, state governments, PSUs, various other government organizations, telecom service provider, internet service providers, equipment manufacturers. At that time, cloud was not there, but still some data centers were there. Academia, content provider, everyone we approached and we tried to brief them. And I remember there were number of programs all across the countries not just in metros, but even, relatively smaller towns, to educate people about use of IP6. Why should we use IP6? And at the time, somehow some kind of a threat was created that IPv4 will run out very quickly. Of course, it didn't happen. But the very advantage of IPv6, which Dr. Satya Gupta was emphasizing, the fact that it provides so much of security and the class of service, there are so many things attached with IPv6 and so much of flexibility in addressing. You can distribute IPv6 addresses free of cost to the citizen. So this kind of things that we could learn and we started educating people about, it was very thrilling. And it was this initiative that created some kind of knowledge and understanding within the government. But as you know, that you train government officers and they are transferred, or they superannuate, and that's all. With them, the knowledge goes away. So it is very important to train people down below also, younger people who are going to understand the very use of the technology. I remember that by 2012, Telecom Engineering Center had what is called as IPv6 Logo Lab. And this was one of its kind. Only 3 or 4 labs were accredited at that time for this purpose. But somehow or the other, I have a feeling that we lost way. We lost our way because in between, there was very little talk about implementation of IPv6. There may be, the Geo has done a fantastic job. Other service providers might have also introduced, and they were, Geo was kind of forced to introduce IPv6 because they are such huge network and they had no other way to go. But what I'm saying is that in between, we lost our way. Why the penetration elsewhere is much lower is only because we have not educated people. We are not bringing them on board. It's very important that we start educating. Thankfully, we have a government today which has a lot of focus on technology development, on Atmanirbhar Bharat. Both our ministers, Rajiv Chandrasekhar ji and then Vaishnav Sahab, they are very much tech savvy, and their focus is that somehow or the other we have to push technology. Just now, while this program was going on, I got a message, secretary's message, that IPv6 number of programs have to be done across the country, and a complete format has been given as to how and who all will participate in those roundtables. So government has a lot of focus. Now in 2013, we came out with the version 3 of IPv6 deployment roadmap. But then after that, somehow I kept myself aloof from technology, which is very difficult for me to myself, admit, or the industry actually lost track and government also lost track. It became, our penetration is low, and as Abhishek has been emphasizing and everyone else reiterated, we have to start educating people and especially focus on network security, focus on the things that are very important for the country. Mr. Agrawal was alluding to the .ru being banned by ICANN, some countries suggesting. These are all real threats. These are all real threats against any country. And India being such a large country, which such a vast population and proportionate number of technical people, we should be in a position to bring out networks and technologies that protect the country. And IPv6 IP addresses are very important to be protected, and that's the way and the key to protect our network. There has been some very good, statistics. It's not that we have done very poorly. Thankfully, to the introduction of, VoLTE and entire network being IPv6, that of Reliance Jio, we have taken kind of global leadership in the sense that we have achieved around 75% IPv6 capability as against world average of 28.18%. And we are leading leaders, not just developing countries, but also such leaders as USA, which has only 47.58%. China has 19.58%, Japan 32.38%, UK 32.61%. So we lead them by a large margin, but that is not enough. This is the effort only that of the large telecom service providers. Each one of them in enterprise business, in commercial electronics, etc. IPv6 has to enter in a big way. Now, as such, our growth has been very high. It has been, 413. 13.7%, which is phenomenal as compared to even developed countries, USA, etc. They have been far behind. So a large number of cloud service providers, equipment manufacturers have also successfully deployed, and they are using IPv6 for various innovative applications. Significant number of companies have also transitioned to IPv6. Only kind of network, of course, dual stack is the one that is prevailing in most of the network. India has a very fast-growing internet population with vast majority of new users coming online via smartphones. So I'm sure that with thrust from the government and from the bodies like Broadband India Forum, who are able to impart training and knowledge and awareness to the masses, I'm sure that the implementation will improve. You know that IPv6 has a very big place in 5G, primarily because of Internet of Things, which will add billions of new devices to mobile network when it is rolled out. So you know that IPv4 will never be able to cope with this kind of requirement. So it is imperative that we push for implementation of IPv6. I hope that concerted efforts of Department of Telecom, state governments, telecom service providers, state enterprises will raise the bar and ensure that Bharat is Atmanirbhar in every aspect of technological integration in public service delivery. National interest is most important, as I said earlier, and the government is very particular to ensure that our networks are protected. Always there is some discussion or the other going on every day. You know that there is talk, there is so much of discussion about trusted telecom equipment and network. So simultaneously, there should be some kind of enforcement with regard to implementation of at least dual stack and slowly moving towards IPv6. I know that the target has been, shifted to December, but our NT division in Department of Telecom, I think they will take note and ensure that they have to give a little bit of nudge to the users in the country so that everyone falls in line and introduces IPv6 as early as possible. I have very patiently heard the recommendations that has been released today, the white paper. And as Ms. Amrita has said in her presentation, we need to bring newer versions of this paper, constantly updated, so that there's more and more knowledge of experts and their understanding is introduced and the stakeholders are, sensitized. There was talk of, hesitancy to introduce IPv6. We have to, therefore remove this hesitancy through this kind of programs. Once again, I congratulate Broadband India Forum and Bharat IPv6 Forum for their endeavor, and they have done a wonderful program, and especially releasing of this white paper will go in a long way, because people in industry, people in academia, they will find it a lot of resource to read this document and align their knowledge and understanding about the subject. Once again, congratulations to both the organizations, also to Bharat, exhibitions for being a media partner or organizing partner. Thank you very much for organizing in this equipment. I am very pleased to be a part of this event. And then the citation that you have read, Mr. T.V. Ramchandran, I am really humbled. Thank you very much. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir, for a most enlightening address, which as always is most appreciated for the wealth of knowledge and experience that you bring with you. Many thanks, sir. I now request Mr. Debashish Bhattacharya, Senior DDG Broadband India Forum, to deliver the vote of thanks. Mr. Bhattacharya has been involved in advocacy and consulting for the past 3 decades in the fields of technology, public policy, regulation, markets, as well as business development in the digital communications, satellite communications, and broadcasting domains. He has tremendous experience in these fields, having earlier worked with several reputed tech organizations and business houses in India. Debashish, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Arun. At the outset, I wish to express my gratitude and thanks, heartfelt thanks, to all the participants of today's program. To begin with, I would like to first thank our chief guest, Shri UK Srivastav ji, who has been a true inspiration to all of us, and particularly to me. I consider him as a guru, as a mentor, and I don't think I have adjectives to describe what he has meant to me over the years. Thank you, sir, and we wish you all the best for your professional and personal future. Thank you once again. I also wish to thank our other participants who have taken their time out today to address this August gathering. I would like to begin with by thanking Dr. Satya N. Gupta, Chairman Bharat IPv6 Forum and Treasurer BIF, to give his valuable thoughts. I would also like to thank Madam Amrita Chaudhary, Director CCAOI and UN-IGF MAG member, for her valuable inputs, and to Mr. Anupam Agarwal, Chair of the India Internet Foundation, for his excellent moderation of a very, very learned discussion that we had on the state of IPv6 in India. I would also like to thank each and every one of the participants in the roundtable, namely Mr. Abhishek Mishra from Nixie. Thank you, sir. Mr. B. Nagaraj, Senior Executive Vice President, Reliance Industries. Thank you very much, sir. I would like to thank Mr. Pankaj Chaturvedi, Vice President, Special Projects, Lightstorm, and of course, once again, Dr. S.N. Gupta for participating in the panel discussion. I would also take this opportunity to thank our President, Mr. T.V. Ramachandran, our Director General, Mr. Rajat K. Mukherjee, and also the moderator of today's session, Arun Mukherjee, besides each and every member of the Directorate who have taken a lot of pains to organize this today. And I would also like to thank each and every one of the audience and the attendees who have taken their time out to attend and listen to this very, very significant development regarding IPv6 and the way forward. Thank you all. And before we close, I would request each and every one of the participants, if they can kindly switch on their videos for a joint photograph, which we will take right now. I would urge everyone to kindly open their cameras, please. Amrita, if you could. Oh, okay. So, yeah, that's better. Thank you. So I presume I'm going to get a signal from someone that it is done.
I think that is done. Thank you very much, Nilesh.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, UK sir. Thank you, Pankaj ji. Thank you, Anupam ji. Thank you, Nagaraj ji. Thank you, Amrita. Thank you, TV sir. Thanks, Rajat. Thanks, Arun. Thank you very much.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you at the next digital dialogues.
Certainly. Thank you.